Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to Christmas in Arkham 2023. After the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament gave us our opponent last week, we're all set to begin the campaign proper for Christmas in Arkham this year. Just as a quick high-level overview, we're playing the three biggest games in the Arkham Horror files: Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and Elder Sign as a mini-campaign. If we win each game, we'll start the next one with an extra item, but if we lose, we'll start down 1 health and 1 sanity. The further details can be found in the campaign intro video, and I'll put a link to that down below. In this game, we're running around the world trying to solve the mysteries of the Ancient One, and on that note, what say we go meet our opponent for this year's Christmas in Arkham, aka the winner of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. After putting together a pair of dazzling performances in the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament last week, our opponent for this year's Christmas in Arkham will be the King in Yellow, also known as the Unspeakable One, Hastur. So we're going to take a look at his Eldritch Horror version. He's supposed to start off with 11 Doom, but as we'll see, he won't be starting off with that amount of Doom. Cultists are modified by Steel being a straight will check, need 1 success to not lose sanity. Strength -1, 1 success to not lose health, 1 toughness to kill it, and on a reckoning, which is what that symbol is, the cultist summons a Bayaki. A Bayaki monster ambushes an investigator on this or an adjacent space. Then looking over to Hastur's special abilities, when 2 mysteries have been solved, the investigators win the game. When Hastur awakens, flip this sheet and resolve the Hastur Awakens effect on the back. As a reckoning, investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the board, unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition. Far from Earth, beneath the star of Aldebaran, the Unspeakable One sleeps imprisoned within the core of one of the dark stars of the Hyades. Trapped there in a war long forgotten, he dreams of escaping to exact his terrible will upon the cosmos. Setup also instructed us to set aside a Bayaki monster for Hastur, so we'll take a look at this as well. Straight will, need 1 success to not lose sanity. Straight strength, 2 successes to not lose health, 2 toughness to kill it. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, you may lose 1 sanity and move 3 spaces instead of resolving another encounter. So we could theoretically tame the Bayaki, especially if there's somewhere we need to get to. I mentioned our prelude as well. Ghost from the Past. You flip through the pages of the bloodstained journal. It is nothing you have not read 10 times over already. Furious, you throw it against the wall. Dead. Gone. For what? To find answers to a question that should never have been asked. A question that even now you cannot expunge from your thoughts. Lost and alone, you make your way out of the coroner's office, a small box of the deceased's effects in hand. Before resolving step 3 of setup, choose and place investigators, draw 1 random investigator sheet and return it to the game box. Except I did that after picking the investigators because I didn't want the investigators that were chosen for Christmas in Arkham to be eligible for this. During step 4 of setup, receive starting possessions, health, and sanity. The lead investigator gains the starting possessions noted on the investigator sheet that was returned to the game box. Then he or she gains a haunted condition and advances Doom by 1. So in this case, we'll actually be starting with 10 Doom on Hastur. So I'm just going to make a quick note here before we go meet the investigator who is... And this was a tricky question for me because... I'm going to finish making this note. This was a tricky question for me because if I pull an investigator who is going to be eligible, who theoretically would have been eligible for Christmas in Arkham, then I was going to take that investigator completely out of the campaign, figuring the same idea that they're ending up dead, so we might as well just take them out. But the investigator we're taking out of Christmas in Arkham is Joe Diamond. That will become relevant when we go meet our first lead investigator for the round. But now I think we're all set up with the Ancient Ones, so now we'll start working our way over to the board, and we'll meet our investigators. Our first investigator on the team this year is Mandy Thompson, the researcher. I'm going to finish putting Hastur's stuff down over here. Okay, now that we've got that all set up. Mandy Thompson, the researcher. We'll bring her card up so we can see over our other investigators. As an action, draw 2 clues from the clue pool. Spawn one of them and discard the other. After resolving a research encounter, if you gained exactly 1 clue from that encounter, gain 1 additional clue. I will find a way to end this horror. I will not stop searching. 5 health and 7 sanity. Lore and influence at 3. Observation very good at 4. Strength and will are garbage at 1 and 2. Well, strength is garbage at 1. Will is mid, I'd say, at 2. But we'll take a look at the story on the back. Pretend that the text over here... Actually, we might be able to keep it so that it doesn't exist. Okay. Ever since she was a child, Mandy would read when she could not sleep. Such had been the case on many nights. Her remarkable memory and ability to correlate facts have made her a highly sought-after researcher around the world. Over time, her work has required her to read strange occult texts. These bizarre tomes have slowly caused her to suspect that an ancient being will arise to destroy humanity. Recently, the scrolls she has been reading in Shanghai have made it clear that the world is in imminent danger. Delightful. So obviously she'll start in Shanghai. We'll take a look at her starting possessions. First, she's got a magnifying glass unique asset. Once per round, you or another investigator on your space may spend 1 clue to reroll any number of dice when resolving a test. And a Know Thy Enemy task. Whenever you gain a clue during a research encounter, place 1 Eldritch token on this card, then you may flip. And of course, we are playing with personal stories. Mandy's personal story is connect the dots. Connecting the dots is what you're good at. Everything is related if you look hard enough. Anything can be predicted by the events that came before it. The question is, can you make the connection in time? When a mystery is solved, discard this card and gain the answer is clear reward. When you have only 1 health or 1 sanity, discard this card and gain the inevitability consequence. Mandy's token's already on the board at Shanghai, so let's go meet our second investigator. And what will probably come as no shock to anybody who was around the channel during the fall campaign earlier this year, our second investigator will be Jacqueline Fine, especially with taking on Hastur. These 2 ladies are burning for a rematch from the fall campaign when Hastur proved to be too much for them in Dim Carcosa. Once again, Jacqueline Fine is, of course, the psychic. As an action, you may trade any number of clues with an investigator on any space. Once per round, when another investigator gains a non-common condition, you may look at the back of that card and gain 1 clue. The visions are a warning. The future can be rewritten. 4 health and 8 sanity. Before we go through her stat line, I will mention that if a condition says it'll say common toward the middle of the card. The only condition I've seen that we won't be able to look at so far is debt conditions, but there's a lot of conditions in this game. Like I said, it'll say common. So if we take a look at this card, well, we'll look at Flesh Ward as our starting possession, mostly so I can explain this. Once per round, when an investigator would lose health, you may test lore. If you pass, prevent that investigator from losing up to 2 health, then flip. Where I'm going with this, though, is where it says incantation here. On a condition card, it would say what type of condition it is. And if it says common if it says common here, then we would not be able to look at that. So I just wanted to make that clear on how Jacqueline's ability works. Anyway, coming back to Jacqueline, 4 health and 8 sanity. Lore is great at 4. Influence is middling at 2. Observation is pretty good at 3. Strength is also Lahat Garbagia at 1. And will is pretty good at 3 as well. We'll take a look at the back for Jacqueline's story. She also starts with a clue in addition to the Flesh Ward. At first, Jacqueline's dreams of fire and destruction seemed like a curse. Monsters run rampant through city streets, and some greater darkness loomed on the horizon. However, she has recently learned to control her visions and observe events in detail. Yesterday, she traveled from Boston to Minneapolis to explore an abandoned warehouse she'd seen in her dreams. Inside, she found evidence of a terrible cult that had practiced unspeakable rituals here. Jacqueline hopes to use what she's learned to prevent the terrible future that haunts her sleep. She starts at space 5, which I suppose that could be Minneapolis. I guess I've always termed that more as being Chicago, but looking at where it actually is on the map, yeah, I think it's actually Minneapolis. She also starts with a clue in addition to her flesh ward. That's it for Jacqueline. Now let's go meet our third investigator. Before we meet our third investigator, we need to look at Jacqueline's personal story. Jacqueline's personal story is Arbiter of Fate. Your visions see your friends thriving in one moment, only to die in the next. Death. The only certainty in life is death. After you gain a clue using your passive ability, you may spend 5 clues and discard this card to gain the Oracle reward. When Doom advances to 6 or lower, shuffle the Mythos deck, discard this card, and gain the Dark Future consequence. If you remember from earlier this year when I paid a visit over to Jester's channel to play Eldritch Horror, we took on Alak Naka. Actually, I've been over a few times to visit Jester to play Eldritch Horror, but when we took on Alak Naka and it was just the two of us, Jacqueline was one of our investigators, and I mentioned there, and it still holds true here as well, that shuffling the Mythos deck is absolutely one of the most dangerous things you can do in this game. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now we'll come back to our third investigator, Tony Morgan, the bounty hunter. We'll bring his card up to take a look at that. As an action, he can test influence. If you pass, you may spend up to 2 focus to gain 1 clue for each focus spent. And when you defeat a monster during a combat encounter, gain 1 focus. 7 health, 5 sanity. Lore and influence are mid at 2. Observation's great at 4. Strength is pretty good at 3. Will is also mid at 2. Tony's story. He starts in Bogota. His token's already there. Tony's tracked down low-life scum in every lousy corner of the world, but nothing was quite as bad as Innsmouth. Some creep in Boston skipped bail and tried to hide with family in the small fishing village. It turned out family meant vicious fish-like monstrosities that left Tony bloody and half-drowned. Ever since, he's found a new kind of dirtbag to hunt. Ordinary mobster or otherworldly monster, Tony will take it down and find someone willing to pay him for it. Now he's got a lead in Bogota. Easy money. Yeah, I'm not going to bet on that easy money part. We'll go through Tony's possessions, which are a little bit trumped up because of our prelude. He normally starts with handcuffs. Before resolving the strength test during a combat encounter, you may spend 1 focus to defeat that monster if it has toughness 2 or less. And because of our prelude, Tony gets Joe's starting possession, which is the 32 Colt Pocket. Roll 1 additional die when resolving a strength test during combat encounters. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. One thing I want to mention before we go too far, and it'll probably make more sense when we get deeper into the game. If a card gives you if you have multiple cards on you that give plus whatever to a stat, you only get the highest of those cards. So say Tony has a weapon that gives him +2 and another one that gives him +4, he would only get the +4 weapon. But anything that says roll additional dice, those all stack together. So let's say he has the aforementioned +2 and +4, and then he's got 2 effects that say roll 1 additional die when resolving, say, a strength test during a combat encounter. He would get the +4 dice from the weapons that he has that give him plus stats, but he'd get all of the roll additional dice items. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear. Also, as part of the prelude, Tony has Haunted as a condition. If you would gain a blessed condition or improve will, you may discard this card instead. On a reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1, 2, or 3, flip this card. Now this actually might have been a better card to use because it would say Bane Common over here. Jacqueline, if somebody were to get this card later in the game, Jacqueline could look at it, but because it's coming in as part of setup and there's no real round here, Jacqueline doesn't get to look at it, which is somewhat unfortunate, but it is what it is. Tony's personal story. Thrill of the hunt. You check and recheck your guns, making certain that all is ready. These marks are going to be tough. They usually are. But you can handle it. It is what you do. When you defeat a non-epic monster during a combat encounter, place that monster on this card. Then if there are 5 or more monsters on this card, discard this card and gain the Trophy Hunter reward. When you have only 1 health or 1 sanity, Discard this card and gain the blacklisted consequence. Delightful. With that, let's go meet our last investigator. Our last investigator for today is Jim Culver, the musician. As an action, each investigator on your space may recover 1 sanity. Investigators on your space roll 1 additional die when resolving tests during combat encounters. No, not quiet at all. Dead folks get downright rambunctious when I play my horn. 7 health, 5 sanity. Lore and influence lore, influence, and will are pretty good at 3. Observation and strength are middling at 2. His intro story, he starts off with a shriveling and a clue. Starts off with space 6. Old Jim Culver's music gives sweet comfort to the soul, and it doesn't matter if that soul belongs to the living or the dead. Folks in the graves, they love their little chats with Jim. It used to bother him, but now he's happy for the company. Lately, some departed souls in San Antonio have been all riled up about something. They're downright terrified. And anything that scares the dead deserves old Jim's undivided attention. We'll take a look at his shriveling. It's a ritual spell. As an action, test lore. If you pass, choose a monster on your space to lose 2 health, then flip. And then Jim's personal story is Dead Rising. You can learn much from the departed. In particular, those who have tried and failed, Doff, you and your friends seem much more willing to speak in death than in life. When a non-epic monster is defeated or discarded, place that monster on this card. Then, if there are 6 or more monsters on this card, discard this card and gain the Sweet Harmony reward. When you have only 1 health or 1 sanity, discard this card and gain the out-of-time consequence. So we need to be careful to keep our health and sanity high and work quickly on that first mystery. So, with that, I think now we're ready to move over to the board and start and finish setup over there. As I mentioned, we have a bit of setup we need to finalize over here. So, we're going to take a look first at the top 4, at the 4 cards for the reserve. First up we find Protective Amulet, taking 1 success. Gain +1 will during combat encounters. That might be something for Tony to go grab. Next up in the reserve, we will find Private Investigator for 2 successes. Gain as an ally. Gain +1 observation, and you may re-roll 1 die when resolving an observation test. Next up, we'll find Mystic Tome for 3 successes. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 2 spells, then discard 1 of them. When you perform a rest action, recover 1 additional sanity. Last up, Agency Stakeout for 3. When you gain this card, immediately gain 1 clue, and 1 monster of your choice on any space loses 3 health, then discard this card. That fold space is probably right on the right on the fold of the table, so I don't think there's any help for that here. Let's see, so that's the top 4 cards of the reserve. Now we need a gate. Actually, I should point out as well that our expedition encounter right now is at the Himalayas, which is very accessible to Mandy. Let's see if this gate changes that. Rome, it does not, but it is out in the middle of nowhere, so we do need to have an eye on dealing with that rather quickly. The monster that we get with it is a Wraith. Oh boy. It's got spawn instructions. We'll come to that in a second. Will -1, need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -1, need 2 successes to not lose health. 3 toughness to kill it. And when this monster is spawned, the lead investigator gains a cursed condition. When this monster is defeated, an investigator may discard a cursed condition. Great. Just what I wanted to see. So Tony's cursed right off the bat. Cursed. Condition, Bane. Only 6s count as successes on your tests. If you would gain another cursed condition, flip this card instead. If you gain a blessed condition, discard this card instead. Reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard this card. Similar to when he got haunted from the Prelude, Jacqueline won't get to look at this one because it's coming in still as part of setup. That's our gate. Spawn a clue, so we need to spawn clues, so we need to spawn 2 clues. Actually, I'm going to bring that down, that reference card down a lot closer so I can actually see it without having to crane my neck at a weird angle. We'll draw our first clues. There's our 2 clues. We're going to space 6 in Arkham. So we've got one right on top of Jim and one in Arkham. All right, that's clues. Now we need our first mystery. So we've got Hastur's Mysteries right here. We only need 2 mysteries to win, so I'm pretty much guaranteed that these are going to be beasts of mysteries to do. Here's our first mystery. Let's see what we're looking at here. Spawn of Hastur. To gaze upon the progeny of the unspeakable one is to invite into your very core the exact darkness which you mean to defeat. No being, no matter how pure, can escape Hastur's shadowy caress unmarred. When this card enters play, spawn 1 gate. Then spawn the Spawn of Hastur epic monster on that space. At the end of the Mythos phase, if the Spawn of Hastur epic monster has been defeated, solve this mystery. So we get another gate. Delightful. I'll pull out the Spawn of Hastur so I don't forget about that. Right here. Okay, so we'll spawn another gate. This gate is going to Hyperborea, Space 13, out in the middle of nowhere. And then we need a monster to go with it, plus the Spawn of Hastur will be joining it shortly. A star spawn, oh joy. Will -1, need 3 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -3, 3 successes to not lose health. 5 toughness to kill it, and on a reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1 or a 2, advance doom by 1. This is going to go quick. But we also need the Spawn of Hastur. So here's that. Thankfully no reckoning, at least. Strength -1, need 3 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -1, need 2 successes to not lose health. Toughness is equal to Investigators +2, so 6. And if this epic monster would lose 2 or more health, it loses 1 health instead. Oh, gross. So we need to basically kill this thing 1 damage at a time. That's great. Of course we do. Delightful. So with that in mind, we're all set for our first action phase. Tony's our first player this round, so let's move down to Bogota. We can get Tony, Jim, and Jacqueline all in one shot, and I think they're going to go... I think Jacqueline and Jim are going to go 2-3, just so I can keep the shot. Tony is going to get a focus, I think. Yes, he's going to take a focus. And I'm going to give him a ship ticket as well. Curse, I don't want him rolling dice if I can avoid it, but then I'm probably going to be rolling in the encounter phase. So there's a ship ticket so I can get Tony moving. We don't need clues right now, so I think I'm fine leaving the clue in the south for a little while. I'll let Jim go second. I think we'll bring him to... I think we'll bring Jim to Arkham so I can try to get him some more spells. And then I'm going to have him try to acquire assets. Now, I was going to mention this a little bit later in the video, but it seems like it's a good time now. So I've been experimenting with a new dice tower. You might have seen it during the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament and Mag 23 Guadalcanal that we played at the end of last week. So I picked up this new black dice tower from my local game store as part of Black Friday. I originally got it for the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, but apparently somebody couldn't understand, hey, get a less imposing dice tower. So I somehow managed to get a more imposing dice tower. But I really like this tower, so I want to let you guys weigh in on which tower you like better. So I'm going to do a few tests with each of them, and then I'll let you guys weigh in the comments down below. So first up, we're going to use the black dice tower. I'm going to see if I can move that. Oop. This is why I'm kind of hesitant to embrace it further, because it is, as you can see, it is a very imposing tower. I'm having to move a lot on the board to get it in shot. So Jim is going to try to acquire some assets with 3 dice. Let me get the dice here in shot. So we've got 3 dice. Oop. There we are. The black on green seems to be a bit less of a problem to read, but the one thing I really like about this tower is it's very quiet, but that is a whole lot of nothing for successes for Jim. We can discard something from the reserve if we wish to, and I think we're going to get rid of the Mystic Tome since we're not buying anything. Then replacing that will be a Vatican Missionary for 2 successes. Gain +1 will, and you may re-roll a die when resolving a will test. We can bring that tower out of shop. The other thing I really like about the new tower is it's got space where I can put my dice. So I do kind of like having that option available as well. For Jacqueline, she'll go 3rd, and I think she's going to move to Arkham as well. And we'll get I think we'll get her a focus. That's it for Jacqueline, so let's move over to Mandy, who's all alone on the other side of the board in Shanghai. An unguarded expedition encounter for me is just too tempting a target at this early stage of the game. So, with that in mind, I'm going to give Mandy a focus, and I'm going to move her over to the Himalayas for the expedition encounter. That's it for Mandy. That's it for the action phase. Let's go to the encounter phase next, and we'll start off with Tony, who's still down in Bogota. I'll bring the dice tower I've been using on the channel into shot next. So this is the other tower that I'm considering. This, like I said, this is the one I've been using for a while. Tony is going to have a generic city encounter because that's the only choice he's got. So we need one of these, and let's see what we've got. You see a street magician use real magic in his act. Gain 1 glamour spell. Oh, I hate these glamour spells, especially when Tony's coming in cursed. I've got my iPad off shot where I've got a spreadsheet selector for everything. Let's see, glamour spell. I need to go to formulas. Okay. Going to my binder as well, in case you're wondering what the dead air is. Well, I'm looking at I'm looking at my spell, and it's actually kind of timely. Because I cheated a little bit, and I saw a bit of what the card is saying coming up. So the glamour spell we've picked up is Mind's Eye. You may reroll 1 die when resolving an influence or will test. Reckoning, test lore, and flip. I'm not a fan of these glamour spells, and like I said, Tony being cursed from the jump was not very good. But, of course, there's more. During his show, he locks you in a safe. Will -1. His will is 2, -1 is 1, and it's a cursed die. So let's see what we can do with that. We do have Mind's Eye available to us for a reroll if we need it. Which, of course, we will use. And fail. Not a big surprise there. We were rolling one cursed die. If you fail, you panic. Gain a paranoia condition. Going back to the binder. I'm shuffling the paranoia conditions up off camera. Trying to get them back in the binder. There we go. Here's our paranoia. When you perform a rest action, you may roll one die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. On a reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip. I think Jacqueline is going to take a look at the back of this card using her special ability. Self-doubt. Your friends and colleagues were right. What hope do you have of changing anything? Mere mortals couldn't possibly stop ancient, powerful beings. Discard all of your improvement tokens, then discard this card. That's not a terrible one for Tony to get at this stage of the game. Especially since we don't have any... since we don't have any improvement tokens right now to speak of. Okay, I'll get Jacqueline her clue here. There we are. And Jim is going to have an Arkham encounter. So we'll take a look at that. In the restricted section of Miskatonic University's library, you study an esoteric tome. Gain one incantation spell. Okay. Let's see what Jim gets. Incantation, Jim's going to get Spectral Razor. Going back to the binder once again. And we'll just take the one that came out of the binder. I normally would shuffle these up, but I'll just take the bottom one out of the binder that just came out. Spectral Razor. When resolving a combat encounter, you may test lore. If you pass, roll one additional die when resolving the strength test during that encounter, then flip. But once again, there's more. You try to decode a note written in the margin, lore. Jim's lore is pretty good at 3, so let's see what happens here with normal dice. Jim will pass, and wow, 2 1s in there. And all that happens. Once it decides to focus, is we just avoid bad stuff. That could have been worse. Jacqueline will also have an Arkham encounter. Let's see what she's getting up to in Arkham. Ma Matheson shows you a journal left behind by one of the lodgers at her boarding house. The text makes several oblique references to the occult, but you think you can decipher its meaning. Lore -1. Jacqueline's lore is actually pretty good at 4, -1 is 3. So even though we rolled 2 1s, we'll keep those dice. Just because they're already in there. And fail. Which means... we just avoid good stuff. Rather unfortunate, but it is what it is. That's it for those 3. Now let's move over to Mandy on the other side of the world. Mandy's having an expedition encounter at the Himalayas, so let's see what we've got here. As you stand at the gates of Shambhala, at last you stand at the gates of Shambhala. The monks demand you meditate for a week before entering. Resolve the pass effect to sneak in, or the fail effect to begin your meditation. I think we're going to try to sneak in. I cheated a little bit, and I kind of peeked at... I kind of got a look at what the test was, but we're going to try to sneak in. So we're going for the pass effect. You walk away from this gate and try to sneak into the city later. Observation. Mandy's observation's pretty good at 4, and she's got a focus for this. That's a pass. That's a couple passes, actually. If you pass, you enter their temple unseen and discover a lost treasure. Gain 1 artifact. The expedition's moving to the Amazon because that's what's on top of the deck, and the artifact Mandy gains is the grotesque statue. When you gain this card from the deck, gain 5 clues. Once per round, you may spend 1 clue to prevent all sanity loss from a single effect. So we could actually just shoot those clues over to Jacqueline, and the next time somebody gets a condition, she can look at it. She can look at it and just clear her personal story, so we don't have to worry about potentially shuffling the Mythos deck. Let's see, how many clues is that? That is 1 too many clues. I'll just give her the 5 clues. That actually, Mandy. See, like I said, I could shoot those clues over to Jacqueline, and I'm very tempted to do that. But that's it for the investigation phase, or the encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. Knowing this game like I do, it likes to send our problems from bad to worse. We've got an epic monster that's going to take us forever to defeat, and the Mythos deck is probably going to pour gasoline on the fire. Well, maybe not. Well, we'll see what happens here. Alright, so we'll advance the Omen. Doom will not advance, because we don't have any blue gates on the board right now. Reckoning, so we have monsters first. We have the Star Spawn. We have to roll a die on a 1 or a 2, advance Doom by 1. Let me bring the regular tower back in shot. No 1 or 2, please. So, of course, we roll a 2, which advances Doom by 1. Wonderful. Ancient 1, investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the game board, unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition. Mandy and Jacqueline will each lose 1 sanity since we have 2 gates on the board. We have no Mythos cards in play, possessions, and conditions. Tony is going to roll for his... Tony's going to roll for his cursed first to try to get rid of that. That's a 4, 5, or 6, he gets rid of it. So I'm going to use a blessed die for that. That's a 3, so he's still cursed, which is unfortunate. Next up, he's going to test for his Haunted. On a 1, 2, or 3, he flips. So that's a... Wow. Tony's just getting domed today. So he flips his Haunted. So this flips into... Visiting Spectre. Each night the Spectre visits your dreams, and each morning as you wake feeling as though you have forgotten something important. Discard 1 clue and impair lore. Then flip. Oh, wonderful. At least on the bright side, I get to show off these new improvement and impairment tokens. I need an impairment, not an improvement for lore. At least I get to show off these new tokens from by your command. These things are really cool. This is a... Once it decides to focus. This is a -1 lore. It flips into -2, and I've got a set for... I've got 8 sets, and I've got 8 sets of them, and there's stats for all of them. Let's see, that was his... Okay, we got to roll for his paranoia as well. That's a straight will test. That flips as well, but I don't mind that flipping, because as we saw, it's just to discard all of your improvement tokens, and Tony doesn't have any improvement tokens right now, so a good time for that to come up and flip. He's also got a test for Mind's Eye, though. His lore is now garbage at 1. So, of course, it's going to flip with no successes. Let's see what we've got here. No successes. The spell's lingering effects erode your mind, impair lore, influence, or will unless you discard this card. Bye-bye, Mind's Eye. That is not worth keeping. That is not worth keeping this, especially having gotten cursed pretty much from the word go. That Wraith needs to go pronto, especially if our monster, especially with our almost by default monster killer being cursed. Let's see. That should be going to Mandy. Let's see. Jim's all clear. Jacqueline's all clear. Mandy's all clear. So reckonings are all done. Then we need to spawn another gate. Joy. Let's see what gate we've got this time. This time we've got Relay over here in space 3. So we do have a blue gate. Now we need a monster to go with it. A firebug, oh joy. Test influence, 1 success to not lose sanity. Straight strength, 2 successes to not lose health. 1 toughness to kill it. If you pass the influence test, defeat this monster. And on a reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1 or 2, advance doom by 1. Okay, and then we've got the card. You drop a penny into the peculiar mechanical device. The automaton waves its hand and turns over a card bearing the words, "Good luck is with you." Omen of good fortune. Event. The lead investigator may move the omen to a space of his choice on the doom track without advancing doom. Since we just got... Before we got that blue gate out at Relay, I wouldn't have hesitated to move to the red sunburst now. But I think we're going to go to the other blue constellation. Mostly because I want to buy myself some time before the gates start causing us problems. But knowing how fast those gates are going to start causing us problems makes me want to clear Jacqueline's personal story make me want to clear that now. So I think we're going to move back over to North America, and this time I think Jacqueline will be our first player. Unless something goes completely sideways here, we should have a minimum of 3 rounds before Jacqueline fails her personal story, but she's going to use her component action to take the 5 clues from Mandy so we can clear her personal story next time somebody gains a condition. Then for her second action, she's going to take another focus, which will make her all focused up. Then we'll move over to Jim as our next investigator. Does that specify whenever it would lose health? No. When it would lose 2 or more health, it loses 1 health instead. Great. So, I think with that in mind, Jim is going to take a... I'm going to have to probably send somebody down to deal with this Wraith. So I'm going to grab a... I'm not going to do it now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a focus for Jim, and then I'm going to move him to London so we can maybe get some clues on the board. Then as for Tony, he's going to take another focus, and do we want to send him to the Amazon for another expedition encounter? I think we do. I want to try to keep that cycling through while we have access to it. That's it for the North American side of the board. Now let's move over to Mandy. I think Mandy wants out of the Himalayas pretty badly, so with that in mind, she's going to move back to Shanghai, I think. We're probably going to send her to Tokyo and try to work on some of these monsters from a distance. Then she's going to gather a resource so I can try to acquire some assets, like maybe the agency stakeout, so we can try to get rid of at least the star spawn before we start having problems with that. Anyway, that's it for Mandy. That's it for the action phase. Encounter phase next, and we'll start off with Jacqueline. We're most of the way back up top, but I can get everybody in shot with this, even with the new imposing dice tower in shot. First investigator was Jacqueline. She's still in Arkham. She'll have another Arkham encounter she will find. On a small isle, a mysterious figure grants you powerful magic. Gain one non-ritual spell. Let's see what Jacqueline finds. Okay, that'll work. That is, it says non-ritual, yes. And that is a non-ritual. Alright, I'm shuffling these up. That's our spell. Come on. And our spell that we've gotten is Intervene, Incantation Teamwork. When another investigator resolves a combat encounter, you may test lore. If you pass, that investigator gains +3 strength during that encounter, then flip. But of course, say it with me now, kids, there's more. Suddenly, the figure attacks. Strength. Her strength is basically garbage at 1. But let's see what happens here. I've had weirder things happen before. Jenny in this game has a notorious record with 1 lore tests. But Jacqueline probably doesn't have the exposure to strength characters that Jenny does with lore, so she probably hasn't had as much of a chance for strength tendencies to rub off as Jenny has for lore. Then again, maybe she's had enough. That's a pass. If you pass, the Dark Man is impressed by your might and offers you more power. You may gain an agreement condition to gain a boon condition. Let me refresh my memory on what agreement conditions are. Here we go. As a local action, test influence -1. If you pass, you may spend 2 clues to discard this card. On a reckoning, roll a die. On 1 or 2, the time has come for you to pay your dues. Flip this card. That for a boon, I think we're going to pass on that, unfortunately. Her influence is 2, and an influence impairment would make that very hard to get rid of. So unfortunately, we are going to pass on that. Jim is up next. He's in London, so we'll have our first Europe encounter of the game. What did I do with Jacqueline's encounter? Right here. Alright, back to Jim in London. You try to schedule a meeting with D.G. Hogarth, president of the Royal Geographical Society. Influence. Uh-oh. Actually, Jim's influence is pretty good at 3, so never mind. Hopefully we can use that to our advantage. Passes with flying colors. If you pass, the Distinguished Explorer shares his fascinating tales. Spawn 2 clues. Cool, so we get 2 more clues. We're going to Sydney and Space 9. I really wish By Your Command would have put a line under the 6 and the 9s, you know which is which. I mean, I can turn the You could turn that and go either way with it. I'm guessing because the number is more toward the top of the clue, that's actually supposed to be space 9, but I think it would be nice to have that clarification on these clues, especially when there really isn't room to put the map on there. But this one goes to Sydney, which is down there. All right, that was it for Jim. Tony is doing the expedition encounter, which is probably going to be a bit of an adventure. Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett disappeared in this area of the jungle searching for the lost city of Z. You search for any signs of the legendary expedition or the legendary city. Observation -1. His observation is 4, -1 is 3, but he's rolling cursed dice. So we'll get those out of there. And we'll see how Tony gets on with this encounter. There's a pass in there on cursed dice. Might be a little bit hard to see, but the elder sign is there. You discover a young Kuikuro boy who requires convincing before he'll help you. Influence. Tony's influence isn't as good, so give me that 6. I'm going to re-roll that. We're going to spend a focus for a reroll. I think I kind of remember this card from one of my last playthroughs with Jester and Ruff of Eldritch, where this little brat, I think, is going to try to steal one of Tony's possessions. Spend the other focus, and fail. If you fail, the boy demands payment and disappears. Discard 1 item possession. The little brat made off with my handcuffs this time. Unlike in that playthrough where the brat made off with Tommy, what's his name? Oh God, why can't I think of his last name now? Okay, this is going to bother me until I look this up. Tommy Muldoon, I think, is the name, but I wouldn't swear that's right. I know what he looks like, but I can't put my finger on his name. Ah, here we go. Yep, Tommy Muldoon. Little brat made off with Tommy's rifle last time I encountered him. This time he makes off with Tony's handcuffs. And then the expedition moves to San Francisco. Alright, that's it for Tony. Now we're over to Mandy, who's in Shanghai. So that's our first look at the Asia deck. We don't often get to do Shanghai, so this is kind of a nice change. In your dreams, the Duke of Zhou tests the tenacity of your spirit. You may spend 1 focus to improve lore and 1 other skill of your choice. Mandy has the focus, so we'll definitely spend that. If you don't spend the focus, well, we won't bother with that. You can pause that and read what happens if we don't spend the focus if you want. But Mandy is going to improve lore and, I think, influence as well. So we'll get to show off some of the improvement tokens as well. It was quite an episode to get these lore improvement tokens in. You should go watch the product unboxing if you want the full story on that. That will do it for the encounter phase. Let's bring it all the way back up top for the mythos phase. Alright, let's see how the deck decides to dome us this time. Oh look, it's our first rumor. Delightful. Alright, so we get the clues, which is going to be 2. And 2 clues. These clues are going to Tokyo and the pyramids. Tokyo's right near where Mandy is. The pyramids are down by where the Wraith is. We'll get 4 Eldritch tokens for this in a second. The weather grows worse. Snow and ice cover cities that have never seen such weather before in their history. The Windwalker, ongoing rumor. When this card enters play, spawn the Windwalker epic monster on space 4. When it's defeated, solve this rumor. When there are no Eldritch tokens on this card, each investigator becomes delayed and loses 6 health, then solve this rumor. On a reckoning, discard 1 Eldritch token from this card. That thing needs to go pronto. We'll grab the 4 Eldritch tokens. There we are. We'll do that with them. We need the Windwalker epic monster, which is... Okay, Windwalker, here we are. So we'll take a look at this. Straight Will, need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -2, need 2 successes to not lose health. Toughness is equal to Investigators +2, which is 6. And before resolving the Will test, lose 1 health and 1 sanity unless you spend a clue. That'll go up to space 4. That looks like prime work it down from a distance candidacy. So, with that in mind, I'm surprised we didn't pick up a condition this round, but I'm also kind of not. So, our first investigator this time will be Mandy, so let's move over to Shanghai. Our problems are very much starting to spiral out of control. The question is, which fire do we put out first? Because we've got the Windwalker that's just going to kill 2 of our investigators if it goes off. The Starspawn and the Firebug that are just ticking down doom like crazy. And of course the spawn of Hastur that's going to take us a month and a week to defeat. So, I think we need to try to take out the Windwalker first. So I'm going to move Mandy over to Tokyo. And then she's going to acquire assets. Let me bring the other tower into shot. And then we need 4 dice for Mandy. She's got a resource that she can dump into this. I'm trying to get the agency stakeout mostly. There's 1 success. I can dump the resource in for 2. And Mandy will take a debt condition. As a local action, test influence. If you pass, discard this card. Reckoning, some men have come to collect on your debt, flip. And as you can see, it's got the common keyword on it, so Jacqueline can't look at this. Which gives us 4 successes. 3 of which will go to the agency stakeout, which will gain Mandy a clue. There we are. And 1 monster of her choice on any space loses 3 health. That's going to be the Windwalker, because that thing needs to go pronto. We can't have a monster that's going to just wipe out 2 of our investigators. And then the Protective Amulet will go to Mandy as well, mostly to give us a +1 will and keep the reserve cycling a bit. So now we need 2 cards to replace it. First up will be a Lucky Talisman for 3 successes. Trinket Relic. Once per round, you may reroll all of your dice when resolving a test. And Occult Tablet for 3 successes. Item Relic Tome. Gain +3 lore when resolving spell effects. And when you perform a rest action, you may test lore. If you pass, you may spend 1 sanity to gain 1 clue. Okay, move back to Tokyo and acquired assets. Okay, that's it for Mandy's turn. Now I think our second player will be Jim, so let's move down to London. It's a little bit blocked by the tower. Let me see if I can move the tower just a bit. Okay, perfect. So action 1, Jim's going to move down to Rome, and then he's going to use his Shriveling So he's going to test lore to try to take out to try to work on the Wraith a little bit, make his combat encounter easier. There's a success, so the Wraith will lose 2 health, and then we'll flip that with, and we'll flip Shriveling with 1 success. Resolve the test effect based on your test result, 1 to 2. The harmful magic lingers in your body, lose 1 health. Oh, that could have been worse. That's it for Jim. Let's see, action. Okay, Investigator 3 will be Jacqueline. What do I want her doing? I'm surprised nobody's been able to gain a condition yet. Well, I think I'm going to have her... I could have her take a train ticket and go over to San Francisco to do the expedition, which I think I'll do. So Jacqueline will gain a train ticket and immediately spend it to go do the expedition encounter. As for Tony, who's our 4th and last investigator this round, unfortunately, he's got a big problem on his hands where this reserve is not good for a monster puncher right now. I think with that in mind, he's going to move down to Buenos Aires, I think. And then he's going to get a focus. I'll put that on his mat. That will do it for Tony. That will do it for the investigation phase, or for the action phase. Encounter phase, and let's go say hello to Mandy over in Tokyo. Mandy's encountering Tokyo, so let's see what we're looking at here. The Ainsu offer their help. Gain 1 random service asset from the deck. So we'll go ahead and pull out the... We'll go from the back and take the first service asset we see. That's not a service. That's not a service. Not a service. Service. And we'll shuffle this back up. This deck is huge, so I'm trying to shuffle. Usually I stack it in pieces on the reserve. But with my new token, the new token silos I've been using, I can actually fit the whole thing in the token silo if I take out a few of the trays. So I'm trying to use the token silos that I've got instead. Alright, so our service asset is the Magic Shop. When you gain this card, immediately gain 2 spells. Then discard 1 of them and this card. So Mandy's first spell, okay. That actually might be a good one to grab. That's a ritual. Once again, shuffling off camera. Just so you know I'm not sitting idle. I'm shuffling up for the first spell, so we've got that one and that one. Okay, well, looks like we'll grab all 4 of them and shuffle them up. Alright, we got our 2 spells ready. So our first choice is Call the Storm. As a ritual. As an action, choose a monster on your space and test lore -1. If you pass, the chosen monster loses 3 health, then flip. Or, that resource is gone because we used it. Or we have Arcane Insight. Another ritual. Action, choose yourself or another investigator on any space and test lore -2. Roll 1 additional die for each tome possession you have. If you pass, that investigator gains 1 clue, then flip. I think we're going to take the Call to Storm. So I can go back in the binder. This will go onto Mandy's map. And once again, of course, there's more. You tell them your tale, influence. Well, we just improved influence, so it's at 4 for Mandy. There's a pass. If you pass, they speak to the spirits on your behalf. One monster of your choice on any space loses 3 health. That probably means bye-bye to the Windwalker, so that rumor will be solved right off the bat. Which means we managed to keep that from turning into a huge problem, thankfully. 3 health, Windwalker goes back in the binder. There you are. That was a pretty productive turn for Mandy. Now let's move over to Jim, who's got to deal with the Wraith and Rome. Okay, looking at Jim's combat encounter with the Wraith. He's looking at a will -1 test, or he loses 2 health, or he needs 2 successes to not lose sanity. Will -1 would be 2, but he gets 1 additional die for resolving tests during combat encounters. So that's a 3. Okay, he's all clear there. Then we've got the strength, which is -1. This is where Jacqueline... Actually, we're going to have a couple spells here. First, Jim is going to try to cast Spectral Razor, testing Lore to roll 1 additional die. Which that'll be a fail with no successes. I think we'll use the focus. I'm trying to get rid of this mostly so Tony can discard his cursed condition, but that's no successes. So he's going to flip Spectral Razor. 0. The arcane tendrils twist around one another, tying themselves into knots. Lose 1 sanity, or each 1 you roll when resolving the strength test negates 1 success. We'll lose the 1 sanity. Because next on the docket, Jacqueline is going to try to intervene. She's testing Lore to give Jim another +3 dice. Another +3 strength. Her test is more successful. She only got 1 success, though, but that's enough to give Jim +3 strength. She finds with 1 success. The spirits you channel through your companion give him strength, but grate the mind. That investigator loses 2 sanity unless you discard this card. Yikes. Yeah, he's going to have to lose another 2 sanity, I guess. I'm figuring we're going to need that a lot more in this game. So Jim is now rolling 2, 3. -1 is 2, +3 is 5 dice. And we need 1 success to take it out, 2 to not lose health. And we're probably going to try to close the gate after that. That's 2 successes, so the monster is defeated. I've got to remember what all happens, because we've got some personal story stuff here. Actually, Jim just defeats the... Actually, it just goes on Jim's personal story, because Tony didn't defeat it, so nothing doing there. But that is important, because Tony does get to discard his cursed condition, so now he's rolling normal dice again. We'll get those off the board, and Jim is going to try to close the gate in Rome. So we get an Otherworld encounter. Jim is going to the past. Uh-oh. Through the slits in the closet door, you see yourself as a small child sitting up in bed. "Who's there?" asks a frightened voice. You try to calmly persuade your younger self that you're a friend. Influence -1. His influence is decent at 3, -1 is 2. So give me these 2 5s. Hopefully re-rolling successes is a thing that actually works. It always did for Catweasel, but we'll see if it works for me. Okay, it worked enough there, clearly. The child calms down, but eyes you suspiciously. Listen carefully to what I say, you tell yourself. It might save your life. You may become delayed to gain 2 clues. Whether you become delayed or not, close this gate. So the gate's closed either way. The only question now is if Jim's going to become delayed, and I think he is going to become delayed. So I'm just going to put a focus on him to remind me of that fact, and then Jim will gain 2 clues. Okay, we've got the 2 clues there. Those are going to Jim. That's it for Jim. Now let's move over to Tony, along with the new battery. We've got Tony down in Buenos Aires, who's going to be using normal dice for the first time all game. But let's see what he's doing. You sneak into the temple and overhear the rough croaking of Deep Ones chanting. You recognize familiar elements to the words they are intoning. Lore. Yeah, right. Tony's got a 1 lore test. I don't think he's got the same track record with lore tests that Jenny does. But just to humor it, I'll roll a 5 anyway. Yeah, right. That's going to be a fail. If you fail, it's nothing more than horrific noise. Lose 1 sanity. Tony never really was good with anything related to the mind. But that will do it for the encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the mythos phase. Time for another card from the Deck of Doom. The Deck of Doom this time says, oh, fun. It's a reckoning, so we advance to yellow, or advance to red, or green. Reckoning. Monsters up first. We've got the Firebug, which is a roll 1 die on a 1 or 2 advance Doom by 1. That's a 5, so we're clear there. Starspawn does the same thing. 6, no Doom there. Ancient One, we're losing sanity equal to the number of gates on the board, which right now is 2, unless the lead investigator, who is currently Mandy, gains a blight condition. And she will refresh her memory on blight. She will gain it. Actually, will she? Yes, she will. Once again, I'm shuffling it off camera. And we've got Blight. When you gain this card, discard 1 ally asset. Reckoning, the allies you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause. Flip. We won't flip that during this reckoning because we just got it. But that'll be a problem moving forward. And so the Ancient One. Mythos cards, we got rid of our only Mythos card that would have affected us. Possessions and conditions. So Mandy's debt flips, which is going to be a problem. So let's see what we find here. Unfortunate accident. Your lenders seemed forgiving when you told them you couldn't return the money you borrowed. Soon after the meeting, some intimidating thugs remind you that it isn't good to abuse others' trust. Lose 1 health and gain a leg injury condition, then discard this card. If I remember correctly, leg injuries, nope, are not common. So we'll take a look at leg injury. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. Reckoning tests strength. If you fail, flip. And since it's not common, Jacqueline is going to take a look at the back of it. Twisted Knife. Your knee hurts and is not strong enough to hold your weight. Lose 2 health unless you become delayed. Then flip this card. Mandy has got to get rid of this. Because we need to get rid of that. We're not going to have time to keep having her be delayed by that knee injury. But more importantly, Jacqueline is going to spend 5 clues. She's got 4 plus the 1 she would gain from the encounter from looking at the back of the card. So I'm just going to spend those 5 to clear her personal story. Gain the Oracle reward. Once per round, when Doom advances, gain 1 clue. You may spend 3 clues to negate the text effect of an Event Mythos card. Okay, so that was... Right, that was Mandy's debt. Jim's all clear. Jacqueline's all clear. Tony's got haunted again. Don't roll a 1, Phoenix. Because you need a 1, 2, or 3 to flip. So 4, which means we're fine there. Then we need to spawn a gate. The gate we're spawning is down at Sydney, and we need a monster to go with that. Did we ever... I don't think we ever did Jacqueline's Expedition encounter. Actually, I don't think we did... I don't think we did Jacqueline or Tony's encounters. I am so dumb. Well, okay, here's how we're going to do that. Let's see if I can rewind the... I think we're going to finish the Mythos phase, then we're going to go back and do Jacqueline and Tony's... Wait. We did Tony's encounter. It was Jacqueline's we skipped. So I'm going to finish up the Mythos phase. Actually, before we do that, I'll finish spawning the gate. Which will put Amigo out. Straight will need 1 success to not lose sanity. Strength -2, need 2 successes to not lose health. 3 toughness to kill it. Reckoning, discard the nearest clue and move this monster to that space. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, gain 1 artifact. That was really dumb on my part, so we're going to go back and do Jacqueline's encounter. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm totally... I don't think it's going to affect anything in the Mythos phase, so there shouldn't be any problems there. But let's go ahead and do Jacqueline's encounter here for the expedition. San Francisco. An important treasure was buried beneath the ground in the hull of a decommissioned ship. Resolve the pass effect to hire a guide to find the lost ship, or resolve the fail effect to dig up old vessels until you find it. With a strength of 1, the only way Jacqueline is digging for a ship is if I was elected Pope. And let me just check my emails here. I do not see anything from the Vatican that surprise tells me that, hey, Phoenix Knight, you just got elected Pope. So I think we're going to try hiring a guide, and we'll try our luck with that. You hire a local historian, influence -1. Well, it ultimately would have amounted to the same result anyway, so we're still rolling 1 die either way. A 1 is pretty bonkers. We'll spend a focus. We'll spend another focus and fail. If you fail, he abandons you in a vast maze of pitch black tunnels. Gain an injury and a madness condition. So this wouldn't have affected anything during... Actually, this might have affected Jacqueline during the Mythos phase. So let's get the injury and the madness condition. Internal injury and paranoia. So Jacqueline would have had to test for both of these. I think Tony had a paranoia earlier. So we'll just give Jacqueline that one, and internal injury. Where is the internal injury? Ah, here we are. Paranoia, I think we had earlier. Internal injury is new. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. Reckoning, test strength. If you fail, flip. So we would have had to test for those during the reckoning. Which, let's see, that one's will. We'll use normal dice. Actually, we can do it this way. We'll use black dice for paranoia and the green die for the internal injury. So we would have had to test for both of these during the reckoning. Paranoia wouldn't have flipped, internal injury would have. So let's see what we've got here. Blood loss. As your wounds worsen, your skin becomes pale and your lips turn purple. You are losing blood too quickly and are unable to maintain your body temperature in the cold of night. Gain a hypothermia condition, then discard. Okay, that's a big problem. So paranoia stays. Fortunately, the internal injury is discarded. But Jacqueline now gets a hypothermia condition. Hypothermia condition, exposure. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover health. Roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard this card. If you would gain another hypothermia condition, flip this card instead. Fun. But that wouldn't have changed anything. But otherwise, that wouldn't have changed anything for Jacqueline during the Mythos phase. When Mandy gained the leg injury condition, Jacqueline would have still been able to look at it and discard the clues to gain her Oracle. So that's all. Now we've got all that straight. The expedition encounter moves to the heart of Africa. Gate spawned at Sydney, so we're all clear to move on. In your darkest moment, your compatriots find a way to help shoulder your burden. Each one finds a way to make sure that you never have to suffer alone. In the midst of such horrors, this thought alone provides you with some solace. The lead investigator loses health equal to his current health unless other investigators as a group lose health equal to the number of investigators. The lead investigator loses sanity equal to his current sanity unless other investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of investigators. Let's see, our current lead investigator is Mandy. She would have to lose 5 health unless the investigators lose 4 as a group. And then they'd have to lose 6 sanity. They'd have to lose 4 sanity unless she loses 6. Yeah, about that personal story, Claire, we just got for Jacqueline. How about we invoke that here and cancel this text out? Seems like a much better plan to me. So now that we got that huge dirt all straightened out, usually I'm a lot better about it than that, but hey, mistakes even happen to me on occasion. So now that we've got all that clear, we're back to a new action phase, and all of a sudden we've got some conditions that we need to try to get rid of. So I think we'll move first over to, let's go back to Mandy as our lead investigator, and we'll keep her in Tokyo. This looks like a good turn to do a little bit of resting. So Mandy will rest. She will recover 1 sanity, mostly to try to get rid of this leg injury. She rolls 1 die on a 5 or 6. She gets rid of it. That's a 2, so she still has her leg injury. And then she's going to take a focus. Let's move that over to the right investigator, Phoenix. Mandy's our lead investigator. That will do it for Mandy. Now let's move over to Jacqueline, I think, in San Francisco. Like Mandy, Jacqueline's also going to rest. She can't recover health, but we need to try to get rid of paranoia and hypothermia. So we're going to roll a blue die, fittingly enough, for the hypothermia, and a black die for the paranoia. I'm using the blue die, A, because hypothermia is from your skin turning blue, probably, or being cold anyway, and B, It's a 4, 5, or 6 to get rid of that, where it says a 5 or 6 to get rid of Paranoia. So, we'll give this a quick roll and see what happens. We get rid of both of them. Very nicely done, Jacqueline. And then for Jacqueline's second action, she's going to take a ship ticket because I'm planning on moving her over to Tokyo. If we can get a couple of people over in Tokyo to work on some of these monsters, we might be able to get this game back under control. That will do it for Jacqueline. Now let's move over to... Actually, I think we have Tony... Actually, we have both Tony and Jim in shot as well. So, what do I want to do with Tony? I think we're going to try to acquire assets to keep the reserve moving. So with that in mind, he's going to... Where is he going to acquire assets? I'm going to try to take... Actually, we should probably go try to take out this firebug. So I think he's going to take a focus. And he's going to move over to Relay to try to take out the firebug. So Jacqueline's 2, Tony's 3, and Jim's 4, as Jim just stands up because he became delayed to get the clues from his past self in Rome. That will do it for Jim. That will do it for the action phase. Encounter phase now, and Mandy's over in Tokyo, so let's go meet her. I am not usually that scatterbrained to forget an encounter, but hopefully we've got this straight now. So, flipping over our card, in Tokyo, the demon Mara tempts you with power. You may gain a corruption condition. If you gain the condition, the dweller keeps its word. Gain 1 random service asset from the deck, and a monster of your choice on any space loses 3 health. That actually is very tempting. And now that we're not in any danger of shuffling the... deck... I'm actually very tempted by this corruption condition, especially with the star spawn on the board. Pointing this at the spawn of Hastur would be a waste of time because that's going to reduce it to 1. But yeah, I think a corruption condition here probably is worthwhile. So once I find it... Corruption, Bane. You may gain 1 Eldritch token to reroll 1 die when resolving a test. If you would gain a boon condition, discard this card instead. Reckoning, gain 1 Eldritch token, then flip. Let's... Trying to decide, I think I can look at the back of this with Jacqueline, so I think I will take a look at the back of this with Jacqueline to see how bad it is. You may gain a Dark Pact, yada yada yada. You can't stop screaming. Resolve each effect that applies based on the number of Eldritch tokens you have. 1+, gain a Madness condition for each Eldritch token you have. 3+, resolve the Reckoning effect of each of your Madness conditions, treating all die rolls as 1s. Then flip. Oh, fun. So Mandy's got a Corruption condition now that's sensitive to Madness. And we're going to point the 3 health at the star spawn. That's it for Mandy. Now let's move over to Jacqueline. Before we go to Jacqueline, and we actually got Tony and Jim in shot as well, we need a service asset, since I'm really good at remembering stuff today, apparently. Here we go. That should be going in as well. This asset deck is so awkward to shuffle, but I'm trying to do something with it. So let's give it a really crappy shuffle and a cut. And then we'll take a look at our service asset. We have Divination. When you gain this card, look at the top 3 card gates in the gate stack. Put any number of them on the bottom of the gate stack and the rest on top in any order, then discard. So we're getting our next 3 gates. First up we have London, which is a blue gate, so that's probably a candidate for getting buried. Next up, Tokyo, gross, and the Heart of Africa. I think I'm going to bury all 3 of these because we're going to be advancing to blue very shortly. And the Heart of Africa is basically in the middle of nowhere right now. So I'm going to bury them like that, putting the Heart of Africa on top of the stack, but all 3 are going on the bottom. If I can ever pick up all of the gates. There we go. Okay, now that we've got all that sorted out, now we're over to Jacqueline, who's in San Francisco, who needed a turn to recover. You play Pai Gow in a Chinatown gambling parlor, Influence. Jacqueline's influence is not very good at all at 2. But stranger things have happened. Okay, strange things do happen on occasion. If you pass, you agree to have your winning paid in training, gain 1 talent condition, and improve observation. Okay, I can work with that. So we'll get an observation token for Jacqueline, which will bring hers up to 4. Once it decides to focus, there we are. And Jacqueline gets a talent condition. She's got practiced. There we are. Okay. There's a practiced. Once per round, you may roll 1 additional die and re-roll up to 1 die when resolving a test. If you fail that test, flip. That is for Jacqueline. And we got her observation improvement already. Tony's got to deal with this firebug. He's testing straight influence, needs 1 success to defeat it. Which he will spend a focus to try for. We'll re-roll the 1. Get a 2. I think we're just going to fail that out. Tony will take a sanity. Oh, Jim had to stand up. That's right. This is bad. Then he's going to test strength. That's straight strength. So 3, 4, and he's got to re-roll for it. He needs 1 success to take it out, but 2 to not lose health. Which that's the 1 success to take it out, but Tony will lose a health. So he puts that here, and we're going to put an Eldritch token on Jim's personal story to represent another monster. Then Tony's going to try to close that gate. Let's see what we can do with this. Lost Carcosa. Oh, great. The streets are filled with revelers wearing masks. In perfect, unnerving unison, they turn to you and ask, "Have you seen the yellow sign?" Oh, I got to get a clue for Jacqueline's personal ability. Since we looked at Mandy's corruption this round. I picked the most random times to remember some of this stuff. Resolve the pass effect to tell them that you have seen the sign, or the fail to tell them you have not. We're going to have Tony pretend that he hasn't seen the yellow sign. The mob turns on you and you hide. Observation -1. Observation here is a 4 minus 1 is 3. That's a pass. If you pass, you gain rare insight into Carcosa. Oh, wait. If you pass, you later emerge to find torn and bloody masks and an object. Gain 1 relic unique asset and close this gate. All right, so pulling from here. Yep, that'll work. We get tablet shards. Item or relic. When you perform a rest action, you may attempt to piece together the tablet shards. Observation -1. If you pass, flip. So that's going to Tony. And the gate is closed, so very nicely done there, Tony. Then Jim up in Rome. Let's see what he's doing up in Rome. As the Romans do, I'm sure, but... The ground opens before you at the Lactus Curtius. A voice from the depths asks if you are worthy of its sacrifice. You argue that you are. Influence. Jim's influence is actually decent at 3. Not good enough there, unfortunately. Oh, that's bad. He doesn't have any... Do we want to spend a clue? We want to start spending clues? I think we almost have to try to clear this. Okay, there we go. So we got a pass. If you pass, the pit closes and you feel invigorated. Gain a boon condition. Let's see what Jim gains as a boon. Jim is blessed, so that's very welcome. Blessed. 4s, 5s, and 6s count as successes. If you would gain another blessed condition, flip this card instead. If you would gain a cursed condition, discard this card instead. On a reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1 or a 2, discard this card. Okay, that's it for Jim. Now we can move back up top for the Mythos phase. This card will be our other rumor and the last card in stage 1. Yep, called that. Clues, and the rumor goes to Buenos Aires. Right there, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We need 2 clues. Okay. Spaces 7 and 11. So let me get the dice tower out of the way now that I look to not need it. 7 is where Tony started. 11 is right here in the middle of the Atlantic between South America and Asia. No, not Asia, Africa. Apparently I also forgot geography. The nature of these holes in reality has changed. No longer just doorways, otherworldly energies are flooding into our world. These forces are reaching out to everything nearby and pulling it all into the swirling void that exists between dimensions. Drawn through the gate. Ongoing rumor. When a gate spawns, each investigator on that space gains a lost in time and space condition. As an encounter, an investigator on Buenos Aires may work with a scientist at the university to return the trapped citizens to the real world. Lore. If he passes, he may spend clues equal to half the investigators to solve this rumor. Well, I know 3 places it won't be are London, Tokyo... Actually, there are 5 places I know it won't be. London, Tokyo, Relay... Actually, there's more than that because of the gates we have out on the board as well. It can't be, but I know for a fact that we buried London and Tokyo, which is a good thing because I think Tokyo is a space I'm probably going to go to for a little while because we need to get working on this mystery now. With that in mind, I think we'll get into a new investigation phase, and Jacqueline will be our first player, so we'll move up to San Francisco. I lied. About going over to San Francisco. Jacqueline's still going to be our first player, but she's taken her first action to move over to Tokyo, which from San Francisco she needed the ship ticket to get there. For her second action, Jacqueline is going to take a focus. Mandy will be our second player. She will get a second focus as well. And what will she do? That has to be a monster on her space. Does she want to try to get rid of that leg injury again? Yes, I think she will try to get rid of that leg injury. So she's got to roll a die. On a 5 or 6, she discards it. Because I don't want to be losing 2 health and becoming delayed every time we have a reckoning come up. That's a 4, which I think just misses. Yep, just misses getting rid of it. So that's unfortunate for Mandy. That will do it for Mandy's turn. Now let's get over to the gentlemen and see what they're doing. First up, we'll go say hello to... First up, I think we're going to go say hello to Tony. Tony's coming over to Sydney in a second. Before he leaves, though, he's going to use his tablet shards for observation -1. I'm going to have to move the gate stack so I can bring the dice tower. Let me bring the other dice tower in. It's been a while. It's been a while since we featured this one, and I think I can fit it in here without having to move too much else around. Yep. Okay, so observation -1 for Tony is a 4 minus 1 is 3. The one thing I like about this dice tower, let me tip that up. I may have to zoom out just a touch here. There we go. Looks like we can probably get Jim in shot with his destination. Okay. Tony's testing for his tablet shards. Which he'll pass that, so we'll get to see what we've got in the back of here. So these are his tablet shards, and he finds... Through a maze of metaphors and allegory, you begin to piece together a narrative that describes the current events around the globe. Resolve one effect of your choice. Gain 1 clue, then flip. You may spend 3 clues to advance the active mystery by 1, then discard this card. We're going to gain the clue because we don't have the 3 clues to spend to advance the active mystery by 1, but we definitely need to remember that. If we can get clues over to Tony in a hurry, we need to. Because being able to advance the active mystery by 1 with that spawn of Hastur needing forever and a week to go down is going to be very critical. Then action 2, he'll move over to Sydney, and that'll be it for Tony. Jim is going to work toward the pyramids. Actually, does he want to work toward the pyramids, or does he want to work up to... Or does he want to try to take out the monsters up there? I think we're going to have to work him up toward the mystery. We're going to need somebody to try to get up close and work that down. We've got to get moving on that. So, I'll tip the camera up so we can see Jim moving action 1 to London. Action 2, he'll take a focus. That will do it for Jim. That'll do it for the action phase. Encounter phase, and we'll go say hello to Jacqueline and Mandy. Actually, can we get everybody in one shot here? Yep, I think we can get everybody in one shot. So, we'll come back with the dice tower and shot. We'll use the black dice tower for this round. Looks like we can get everybody in shot. Jacqueline's up first in Tokyo. Let's see what she's getting up to there. Purple deck. Tokyo. You search for the Black Ocean Society. Observation. Jacqueline's observation is pretty garbage at 2. But we do have a focus if we need it, and we're probably going to. I stand corrected. We do have a 5 in there. If you pass, they offer occult aid. One monster on a space of your choice loses health equal to half the number of gates on the game board. Right now we have 2 gates on the game board, so one monster loses 1 health. I'm actually going to leave the dice tower there. I don't know why I'm moving that. I think we're going to point the 1 health at the spawn of Hastur. Because I'd rather be able to take the star spawn out in 1 shot, and I think being able to start at least doing a little bit of damage to the spawn of Hastur is probably a better plan. So that's it for Jacqueline. Mandy thinks the Tokyo encounter looks so cool. She's like, ooh, me next, me next. Patience, my dear. We're getting to it right now. Brilliant physicist Hantaro Nagaoka offers you a deal, saying that he can use spatial disruptions as a weapon. You may gain an agreement condition to discard 1 monster on any toughness, or on any space with toughness equal to or less than the number of gates on the game board. We could use that to clear Tony out, but I'd rather have a shot at the artifact. Actually, how bad is that Migo? That's a strength -2. You know what? We actually are going to use that. Because Tony needs the clue so we can try to advance the active mystery by 1. So we're going to discard... Actually, no, we can't discard that because we only have 2 gates on the board, and the Migo's a toughness of 3. In that case, I don't think we can hit anything. Yeah, I don't think so. Because the Star Spawn has 2 toughness remaining, but it's got to... With toughness equal to or less. I wonder how that wording works. I would think base toughness, but I wonder if it... Let me see if the geek tells me anything. You're going to hear me typing on my iPad while I see if this tells me anything. So, yeah. Okay, so that's what I thought. Get equal to, with toughness equal to. Okay, so they don't lose toughness. So yeah, we won't be able to discard anything on the board because we only have 2 gates and all of our monsters are stronger than that. So that's rather unfortunate. Looking at, who's number 3? Tony is going to go... Actually, Tony's got to fight the Migo now. So, straight will. This could be a problem because if he loses 2 sanity, that's a straight will, right? Yes, this was very dumb on my part, admittedly. Alright, so he loses 1 sanity, which is fine. Actually, we might get some help here because Jacqueline actually can intervene and she will. Yeah. She's testing lore with 4 dice. Since Tony needs more strength. Oop. Get back in the tower, but I like what I see there. 2 successes. Let's see what we've got to find on intervene. 2 successes. The spirits are difficult to fathom, but they grant great power. That investigator loses 1 sanity and may reroll up to 2 dice when resolving the strength test during that encounter. Yep. That investigator loses 1 sanity and may reroll up to 2 dice. So Tony actually fails his personal story, unfortunately, which means the firebug goes back in the bag. So he gets blacklisted. When you gain this card, gain an agreement condition. You can't spend focus or resources as part of an acquire assets. Great. So Tony now has an agreement. We looked at potentially gaining this card earlier in the game, but we didn't do anything with it at that point. So there's the agreement going to Tony. And then he can reroll up to 2 dice during this test. So he's got a 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 3 from Jacqueline is 7, minus 2 is 5, and he needs 3 toughness to take this thing out. That's a 1-2, and he's got 2 rerolls. He's at least not losing health on this. Okay, we'll spend a focus for a reroll. Actually, we have a reroll as part of from the cold pocket, so we'll reroll this 1. And now we'll spend the focus for a reroll. And take out the Migo. So that can go on Jim's story. But Tony also gets an artifact from defeating the Migo. So the artifact Tony finds: the Shining Trapezohedron. Action: choose one monster on any space and roll a die. On a 5 or 6, discard that monster. On a 1 to 4, move that monster to your space. Yikes. That actually might be somewhat useful, because we could potentially use that to make the spawn of Hastur a lot more accessible. But Tony's going to go for the clue, so we need a research encounter for that. He's on a city space. Word on the street is that the police found a strange symbol drawn in blood connecting multiple grisly murders. Your inquiries to the department have all been denied, and you consider breaking into the station to look through their files. You may gain a wanted condition to gain this clue. Let me look at a wanted condition, as if we didn't have enough problems on our hands right now. Yeah, he's going to get a wanted condition. Wanted. You can't perform acquire assets actions. When you perform a travel action, you may roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard this card. Reckoning, test observation. If you fail, flip. Alright, so that goes back into the research encounter stack, and Tony gets the clue. So we need to get another clue over to Tony, and then probably have him rest next turn. That's it for Tony. Jim's up in London. Let's see what he's getting up to. Paul Tregardas shares occult wisdom he gained using a strange crystal. Spawn 1 clue. Alright, we're spawning in the Himalayas, which is currently buried by the dice tray. I'll just put it to the side there so I know it's got to go there. Of course, there's more. You stare into the stone and see ancient glyphs. Lore -1. His lore is 3, -1 is 2. So let's see what we get up to, what we get here. That's a pass. If you pass, you find a prophecy. Gain 1 task unique asset. So I've got to tab back over to my spreadsheet on my iPad so I can find Jim's task asset. Is unspeakable research. Back over to the finder. Here you are. Alright. Unspeakable research, task. When you perform a rest action, you may delve deeper into the secrets of the Ancient Ones, observation. If you pass, place 1 Eldritch token on this card, then you may flip. Oh, he should have been rolling blessed dice, right? Yes, he should have been rolling blessed dice, so he might have had a success. Well, he should have been rolling blessed dice anyway, but we've got all that straight now, so that'll do it for everybody in the encounter phase. Let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. One card from the deck of Doom, and we're now into stage 2. So let's find out what we've got here. We've got a Reckoning. Oh joy. Alright, so advance the Omen. We have no blue gates on the board right now. Reckoning. Monsters. Star Spawn. We need the Dice Tower back in shot. So I'll put it there. 1 or 2 advance Doom by 1. That's a 4, so nothing happens there, because that was the monster. Ancient One. Investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the game board unless the lead investigator gains a blight. Mandy and Jacqueline will each lose 1. Okay, so that was the Ancient One. Mythos cards, none in play. Possessions and conditions. Let's see. Jacqueline's all clear. That wanted should be with Tony, not Mandy. But Mandy's got some fun games of her own to deal with here. Mandy's got her leg injury, which we need the dice tower right back and shot for. A pretty garbage strength of 1. Does she have a focus? She does. Even worse roll, that'll be a second focus. And passes, so she doesn't flip. Let me leave the dice tower and shop because I know I've got a few things that are going to need it. She's going to flip her blight. Oh boy. The Grizzly attack is sure to be tomorrow's headline. Psychotic Break. Resolve 1 effect of your choice. Discard 1 ally asset, then flip. Or lose 3 health and impair influence and strength, then discard. Does she have an ally to discard? She does not. So she's losing 3 health, owie, and impairing influence and strength. Fortunately, strength can't go any further than 1. Also, fortunately, this blight is gone. Mandy's hurting, but she's not heartbroken about losing the blight. Alright, then she's got a corruption, which I believe was going to give us a madness condition per Eldritch token. Yep. We looked at that earlier via Jacqueline's special ability, so we'll go get her a madness condition. Mandy has terror, which is right here. When you perform a rest action, you can't recover sanity. Roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard this card. Reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip. Alright, so that's a 1 corruption there. Tony. Test observation for his wanted, which is 4 dice. Passes that with flying colors. Then we're going to test, then we've got to roll for Haunted and Agreement. So we're going to use a green die for the... Green die for Haunted, black die for Agreement. The Haunted wants a 1, 2, or 3. I think, what do we say? Green die there, black die there, so I can keep them straight. We want the Haunted to be a 4, 5, or 6. The Agreement can be a 3 as well. So, of course, they both flip. Great. Haunted, I believe, was siphoning off his clues. Discard a clue and... Oh, that's problematic. Well, we can probably recover that. Discard a clue and impair lore, then flip. And then the Agreement flips as well, because of course it does. Broken deal. You have yet to fulfill your half of the bargain. The man blows the smoke from his cigar in your face. I hope you understand the position you've put us in. The man leaves the room, leaving his brute squad behind to collect. Lose 2 health and 2 sanity and discard half your possessions, then discard. That actually is going to just defeat Tony by sanity. So that means he's down in Sydney. We'll get a sanity token for that. Great fun. At least his conditions go away. So that's something. Also, Doom advances by 1 because we lost an investigator. I'm going to put these back in the binder. Let's see, Wanted and Haunted. So now Tony will be out of Christmas in Arkham, and let me make a quick editing note of that. Okay. So we've got that all figured out now. And Jim... Okay, let me get all this stuff out of my way. That can go back there. Jim's got his blessing he's got to roll for. We want to see a high roll here, Jim. 6. Okay, so we're all clear there. And then we need to spawn a gate. Our gate's taking us to Buenos Aires, which we need a monster with. We have a werewolf. Has a reckoning effect. Straight will, need 1 success to not lose sanity. Straight strength, 2 successes to not lose health. 2 toughness to kill, and it's got physical resistance. On a reckoning, move this monster 1 space toward the nearest investigator. Then each investigator on this space loses 1 health. Alright, fun. The doctors tell you that you are lucky. Between the non-stop travel, questionable food, constant stress, and physical abuse you suffered, they say you should have already died from any one of a wide variety of ailments. The harder they fall. Each investigator may discard any number of talent conditions, then loses 1 health and 1 sanity for each talent condition. Let me look here. Mandy has no talents. Jacqueline has practice, but she can get rid of that. And Jim's all clear as well, so nobody's going to lose any health or sanity. Practice was in here. So now we need a new investigator who's actually eligible to be part of Christmas in Arkham, which is a little bit challenging because we need investigators that cross all 3 games. So I'm going to find an investigator that meets that criteria, then we'll come back and meet our new investigator. Our replacement for poor Tony is Mark Harrigan, the soldier, which would help if I get his token out and get it over to the board. Where are you? Here you are. We'll take a look at his ability first, his sheet first. As an action, you and a monster on your space each lose 1 health. You can't become delayed or gain a detained condition unless you choose to. I'm walking out that door, and I'm taking this book. Anyone who wants to stop me is welcome to try. 8 health, 4 sanity. Lowers garbage at 1. Influence and observation are middling at 2. Strength and will at 4 and 4 make him our clear new monster puncher. And looking at his story, he starts with a 38 revolver and a kerosene, which we'll get into in a second. During the war, Mark witnessed horrors he could not explain, and he wrote of what he saw in letters to his beloved wife, Sophie. When Mark returned home, he discovered that Sophie was no longer human. One of the beasts that Mark had seen overseas had taken over her body, killing her in the process. Afterward, Mark's thirst for vengeance led him to Helsinki, where some of these creatures had posed as German soldiers during the Great War. We'll move him over to Northern Europe, Space 14, which is apparently Helsinki. The geography looks about right for that. And then we'll take a look at his assets. First up, a kerosene, which he can toss to gain +5 strength during combat encounters. And a revolver, which gives him a recurring 2 strength during combat encounters. So it's going to take him probably a couple turns to get up to the mess up in Hyperborea, but I think we're going to need him to jump in right away on that. Our first investigator, however, will most likely not be Mark. It will be... I think we're going to stick with it being Jacqueline, actually, and we're going to move back over to Tokyo. Actually, we can get everybody in shot along with their destinations. Jacqueline is going to take another focus and a ship ticket, I think. Mostly since we're going to probably start getting things happening up here in a couple turns, and I should be able to spare Jacqueline to be able to go deal with I should be able to spare Jacqueline to go pick up Tony's stuff. As for Mandy, she will also take a focus, and she is going to take a resource so we can eventually start cycling through this reserve. As for Jim and Mark, actually I think Mark will be our third investigator. He'll move down to Rome and he'll grab a train. Actually, he'll grab a focus for now. We can grab the train ticket and send him up into that mess. Then Jim, do I really want to try to ping that thing down right now? No, I don't. I think we're going to have him rest, which will give him 1-1, and he'll take a ship ticket. Mostly so I can plan on being able to get him out of... Ow! Mostly so I can plan on getting him out of that mess right away, because I think the plan there is going to be to dip in. It's probably going to be used to kind of stick and move, will be the plan. We'll have to kind of poke in and poke out. We may have to take occasional combat encounters, but right now we're very much up against we're not necessarily up against the wall here. We're not in a position where I'm very happy with it. We are at least focusing on the mystery, though, so that's something. But that will do it for the action phase. Encounter phase next, and I think we can bring a dice tower in and get everybody in shot. We'll bring that tower back in shot. Jacqueline will be doing a Tokyo encounter, as will Mandy. I'll go ahead. Actually, let's pull all of our encounters and we'll go through them in order. And we need 2 Europe encounters. Jacqueline's up first in Asia in Tokyo. Japanese scientists have struck a bargain with the Migo. You try to break into one of their laboratories. Observation. Jacqueline's observation is it's pretty good, actually. I was about to say it's pretty bad, but 4 is actually pretty good. So let's see what we can do here. That's 2 passes. If you pass, you find a radio that can control monstrous beings. Discard 1 monster of your choice with toughness 3 or less from any space. Unfortunately, I believe that's only the werewolf. Yep, werewolf with a toughness of 2, so that thing goes away. Mandy, also in Tokyo. You pull some strings with the Silver Twilight Lodge to help Detective Kogoro Akechi solve a case. Influence -1. Right, her influence is 3 minus 1 is 2. Give me these 2 successes. We'll reroll these. We'll fail that. And avoid good stuff. That could have been worse. Mark is in Rome. Let's see what he's doing. Men from Naples ask you to interpret ancient objects that they pulled from a city beneath the waves. Lore. Really, you had to pick a soldier to ask to interpret ancient objects. Right. This is totally going to end well. Yeah. Call me unsurprised. If you fail, you can only decipher that there was a great and terrible loss. Lose 1 sanity. Yeah, that loss is about to be ours, most likely, in the first game of Christmas in Arkham. Jim up in London. Dion Fortune's books are filled with occult insight. You try to gain her help against the Ancient One's influence. His influence is actually not terrible at 3. Oh, he's rolling blessed dice, too. Grab the right dice, Phoenix. And pass with 1-4. If you pass, she sends you on a quest. Gain 1 task unique asset. I hate these tasks. But we gotta go to the iPad and get one anyway. Task selector gives me a courier run. Where are you? Courier run, here we are. So Jim's got a courier run to go on. When you gain this card from the deck, place 1 random clue that corresponds to a city space face up on this card. After resolving a location encounter on that space, flip. So we need to go find a... So once I get this in, we'll need to go find a city clue. Space 4 is not a city. Space 21, also not a city. Space 8, also not a city. I'm actually going to hold the bag with this hand. Buenos Aires is a city, even if it's basically in the middle of nowhere right now. Certainly nothing we've got going anywhere, but that's it for the encounter phase. Let's move back up top for the mythos phase. We'll leave the dice tower just in case we need it, depending on what card we get here. It's a yellow, so good thing we'll need it. Okay, so we've got our Reckoning. So we're advancing the Omen, which we have 2 red gates on the board, so Doom advances by 2, which means we're down to 6. Reckoning. Monsters, we still have the Star Spawn up there. 1 or 2 advances Doom by 1. That's a 3, so we're all clear there. Ancient One. Investigators as a group lose sanity equal to 2 once again, unless, actually 3 this time, unless the lead investigator gains a blight. Jacqueline will gain the blight. We saw this earlier. Going back to the binder. This time we'll give it a quick shuffle. Ay-yi-yi. So of course when I'm wanting to shuffle it, right, there's a blight for Jacqueline. Okay. Alright, so those Ancient One, Mythos cards, we have none in play. Possession and conditions. Jacqueline doesn't roll for the blight since she just got it. Mandy is going to test for her conditions. We're going to roll green dice for the terror, black for the leg injury. Will is 2. This is not probably going to be pretty. They both flip. That's great. Let's see what happens with the terror. You awake screaming, only to see your nightmare still staring at you. Lose a sanity and gain a hallucinations and a paranoia condition, then discard. Delightful. Hallucinations and paranoia. We'll give the paranoia a shuffle. And I'll adjust Mandy's sanity by 1. And terror right here. Alright, hallucinations and paranoia are both the same thing. When you perform a rest action, you can roll a die on a 5 or 6 discard. Both of them test will. If you fail, flip. Jacqueline will look at the paranoia, since we haven't looked at a condition yet this round. Well, actually it flipped over, so I'm going to look at the hallucinations. I was trying to put it in my organizer, but the hallucinations fell and I got a glimpse of it, so we'll take a look at that one instead. Delusions. You see now that all of the supposed evidence you've been collecting is just nonsense. Discard all of your clues. Your head feels so clear now. All the monsters and conspiracies you've been hunting were obviously figments of your imagination. Then discard this card. So if we can move the clues off, actually Jacqueline will get a clue. So if we can move the clue off, we won't lose it. Then we get another corruption, which actually we'll swap those out for 2 of the new ones. And I believe that gives us a madness per corruption we have, right? Yes. So 2 more madness conditions from Mandy. Which, as we go back over here, where was my bad conditions generator? Ah, here you are. First madness is... she has hallucinations, so she can't have that one. So hallucinations, hunger she can take. We're probably gonna run out of madness conditions for Mandy to take here pretty soon. Let me just look. We've got hunger. She's got a paranoia. She's got hallucinations. Despair. Actually, we've got a couple of conditions left. She can take a despair or a terror yet. That's hunger, terror. Once again, hunger and terror are both the same thing. When you perform a rest action, you can't recover sanity, roll a die. On a blessed success 4, 5, or 6, discard. Reckoning test will. If you fail, flip. Mandy's got quite the mess on her board right now. Mark is all clear on his. Jim's got his blessing. He wants to see a 3 and up. That's a 6, so he keeps his blessing. Alright, that's all possessions and conditions. Now we spawn a gate. Leg injury. Oh, leg injury flipped as well for Mandy. That's right. Your knee hurts and is not strong enough to hold your weight. Lose 2 health, yada, yada, yada. Unless you become delayed. Well, she's got to become delayed. Otherwise, it's going to kill her. So I'll put the focus on her to remind us that she's delayed. Which is probably fine anyway. I don't know if Mandy's leaving Tokyo for the rest of the game. And then our gate is Antarctica. That's a blue gate in the middle of nowhere, which is going to start sucking doom like crazy. Oh, fun. We've got a star vampire. Will -1, 3 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -2, 2 successes to not lose health. 4 toughness to kill it. And when this monster is spawned, advance the omen by 1 unless the investigators as a group spend 2 clues. We have the clues. The question is, I'm very much starting to see the writing on the wall here, where we're probably not winning this game. So do I just want to speed up the end, or am I going to try to fight this out? I think honestly, because we still need a minimum of 3, assuming everything goes well with that spawn of Hastur. Could we take it out this round? Mandy's going to be stuck in Tokyo anyway, so she'll have another passive counter at it. Jim moves in, uses Shriveling. That's 2. Mark moves in. Actually, no, he would need a ship ticket to get up there, so he's not going to be able to use his component action. So we need 3. And so that would be... And that's assuming Shriveling works to begin with, which is a blessed success. That's probably pretty likely. So 1, 2, 3. Jim would do another one for 4. And then if Mark gets up there for combat, we could take it out this turn. So I think we're going to spend the 2 clues from Jim to not advance the Omen. We're going to try to fight this out, but I don't like our odds. Especially since we've got now 2 red and 2 blue gates on the board. So we're going to suck up Doom hella fast. Which means we just need to fly through this. So yeah, so monster's done. And we're going to look at the event. The doctor tells you that the burns are severe. It will be weeks before your friend can leave the hospital. You were the one that was supposed to be in that car, but instead the bandaged figure on this hospital bed took your place and suffered the fate meant for you. A bomb in the car. Each investigator discards 1 ally asset unless they become delayed. Then each investigator who discarded an ally asset loses 2 sanity. Do we have any allies? I don't think we do. No, we don't have any allies, so we don't have to worry about discarding any ally assets or becoming delayed or the loss of sanity. So that will bring us into a new investigation, or a new action phase. I think we'll move over to Jim as our first player, and we'll get down to Rome and see what he's doing. Jim's in London, Mark's in Rome. Now that we've got that straight, Jim is going to move up for action 1 to space 13 into the mess. Then he's going to use Shriveling, targeting the... Which one is he going to target? We could target the star spawn and try to take that out, but we need all the progress we can find on the spawn of Hastur. So I think we're going to target the spawn of Hastur. We'll use the blessed dice. Two successes, so it will actually only lose 1 health because of that stupid special ability that says, hey, this monster only loses 1 health, right? When it would lose 2 or more health, it loses 1 health instead, yeah. So 2 health there. Then we'll flip Shriveling over with 2 successes to find that he loses a health as well. That's not great, but it's not unrecoverable. Mark will go second. He'll get a ship ticket, and he'll move up into the mess as well. We're going to try to do some serious combat. That will do it for Mark. Could we have moved the camera? Yes. We'll actually be able to get everybody in shot here. So I think Jacqueline will be third. She'll take a resource, and we'll try to acquire some assets. Unfortunately, Jacqueline does not get blessed dice. She gets 2 normal dice. Mostly so we can try to keep the reserve moving. We need more firepower. That's 2 successes. The resource would get us to 3. If she wants a debt condition, we could get up to 5. And I think we do. So, with that in mind, I'm going to take a debt condition for Jacqueline. And the resource gets us up to 5 successes, which will give me the Occult Tablet and the Vatican Missionary. And then replacing in the reserve, we'll find an Arcanist for 3 successes. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 2 spells, then discard 1. Roll 1 additional die when resolving a lore test as part of a spell effect. And Private Flight. When you gain this card, immediately move to any space of your choice, then discard. And then Mandy gets number 4. All she does is stands up. Not a very eventful turn, but that will do it for Mandy. That'll do it for the action phase. Encounter phase, and let's move up to Jim and Mark. Actually, we can probably leave the camera right here. Jim is going to start off with trying to fight the Star Spawn. That thing is going to be very intimidating. The Star Spawn is a Will -1, 3 successes to not lose sanity. Unfortunately, I'm taking a bit of a risk here. 3 - 1 is 2, but at least he's blessed. We need both of these to be successes, or Jim just fails his personal story. This was probably a bad idea. 6. Yeah, I think we're going to need the successes to try to take it out. So he's going to lose 2 successes and fail his personal story, which means Jim is out of tune. Your maximum health and sanity are reduced by 1. Roll 1 fewer die when resolving a will test during a combat encounter. Great. Oh, he gets 1 additional die. Forgot about that. Which means, okay, so he loses 1 sanity, which means he doesn't fail his personal story yet. That probably won't be long, though. But we're going to have some spells here coming. So first, Jim's going to use Spectral Razor to try to roll 1 additional die. That's 3 blessed dice, which he will pass with 1 success. So let's see what happens when we flip Spectral Razor. 1+. Writhing energies lash out at your opponent in a violent flurry. You may spend 1 sanity to have each 6 you roll when resolving the strength test count as 2 successes, then flip. That would be really useful, but we can't do that because that would fail Jim's personal story. So we've got 1 additional die. Jacqueline, I gotta double check this intervene. I flipped it so I can flip it again. I don't think we can afford to intervene for Jim on this one. So we're rolling... oh, yikes. We're going to be rolling... I think we almost have to intervene if we're going to try to take out that Star Spawn. So we are going to end up failing Jim's personal story, ultimately. But Jacqueline's got to try. So she's at a 4, plus 3 from the Occult Tablet is 7. So we're going to get the Blessed Dice out. This is kind of between a rock and a hard place. Three successes, which I think gives him... I think it still loses him 1 sanity. Yep, and you can reroll up to 2 dice. So he still loses the 1 sanity and fails his personal story. But I don't think I have the... I really don't think I have the time to care about that at this point. I think we're just pretty much getting domed at this point. So he's got 3 additional dice. He's got plus 3. 5 plus 1 is 6. Minus 3 is 3. We need 2 of these to be successes to take out the Star Spawn. And we've got 2 we got actually 3 rerolls at it because we've got one from the... Give him the right dice, Phoenix. We've got 2 rerolls from the... We've got 2 rerolls from the Intervene and a Focus. So we need 2 of these to be successes. That's 1. The 2 successes, the 2 rerolls from Intervene are enough to take out the Star Spawn. Jim's personal story doesn't matter at all because we just failed it, which means these can go back in the bag as well. The Eldritch token can go back to the supply. Then looking at the Agent of Hastur, that's will -1, so we're rolling 1 fewer die on will test, which cancels out as passive. 3 minus 1 is 2. Unfortunately, he's about to go insane, which is going to fail Mark's personal story. I did not think this through at all. So yeah, Jim fails his personal story, which means all of this is going to get cleared out. So now Jim's out of Christmas in Arkham as well. Doom will advance by 1, down to 5. Mark fails, well, let me get Jim moved back to London, defeated by Sanity. Mark fails his personal story since another investigator was defeated. So we'll find... Oh, jeez. Total Abandon. Increase the damage and horror of monsters you encounter by 1. After resolving a combat encounter, you and that monster each lose 1 health. Oh, fun! Alright, so that's everything out for Jim. His blessing goes away as well. Personal story, ship ticket can go with him. And I'll put his personal story away. Here we go. We'll need another new investigator. How fun. Let's see. So far we've got Mark Harrigan in. We'll see how long that lasts, though, because now he's got to fight the spawn of Hastur all alone. Will -1, so he gets 3 dice at this, and all 3 of them need to be successes, or Mark's also going insane. That's 1 success, but actually... No, we can take 1 success. He'll just have 1 sanity left. And then he'll use the 38 revolver. Yep, so that's going to be a 4 plus 2 is 6. -1 is 5. And we need 2 successes to not take damage. Which there's 2 successes, so it will take 1... and then another 1 because of the personal story for Mark. So that's going to bring him up, bring the spawn of Hastur to 4 damage. Surprisingly, Mark was not defeated by Sanity there, but if he is defeated by Sanity during the Mythos phase, I may just tap out and plan on starting Arkham 2nd Edition down 1 and 1. We'll see what happens there, though. But that's it for Mark. Now let's move over to Tokyo and see if Jacqueline and Mandy can try to recover this mess. Actually, we can leave the camera right here. I almost forgot about that. That was kind of the point of putting the camera in, putting everybody in shot. First up, we'll have Jacqueline, who is doing Tokyo. Tokyo. The 3rd Infantry offers you help. Gain a random service asset from the deck. Let's see what we can find here. We'll take the first service we see. Bullwhip, police. Oh! Actually, this is not going to be that helpful. Well, it might be. We'll see. Okay, so the asset we got was Police Raid. When you gain this card, immediately choose a space. Each monster on the chosen space loses 3 health, then discard. Star Vampire has 4 health, but I think I'm going to point it at this space, even though we only lose 1. We're setting the table for Mandy to try to take this thing out. But of course, there's more. You fund an illegal attack. Once it decides to focus, you fund an illegal attack. Influence -1. Her influence is 2, -1 is 1. This is pretty garbage. Oop. I've got dice falling on the floor. We'll see that we failed that. Where did the other one go? Here it is. Does Jacqueline have a focus? She does. So we'll spend that for a reroll. Get the same 2 and another reroll. And pass. If you pass, they destroy your foe. Discard 1 monster of your choice on any space. Oh, we can discard the Star Vampire. That's fortunate. Which will mean it's back in the bag, but that's a risk we just have to take. Mandy has a Tokyo encounter as well. The reigning emperor has been plagued by nightmares. His advisors ask your opinion, and you assure him that these horrors are real. Influence. Her influence is 3, and we've got a reroll. So 3 dice. That's a pass. If you pass, they act immediately. 1 monster of your choice on any space loses 2 health. Bye-bye to the spawn of Hastur. That was very fortunate. So that's all 6 health on the spawn of Hastur, but we still need to survive the Mythos phase, which is coming up once we move back up top and I change my battery. I'm not going to move the dice tower into shop yet, because I've got a 1 in 3 chance of this being a yellow. It would be just my luck if it is a yellow, though. And it is, of course. Alright, so we advance the Omen, which puts us down 2 doom because of the blue gates on the board. Reckoning. Monsters. No monsters on the board with Reckoning. Ancient One. Investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the board, which right now is 3, unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition, which we currently don't have in the lead investigator. I guess that'll default to Mark as number 2. And I think Jacqueline will lose 3 sanity. We'll stop that from happening. That was Ancient One. Mythos cards, possessions, and conditions. Mark's clear. Jacqueline's got her blight and her debt, both of which flip. We'll flip the blight first. When your obsessive greed. When your valuables go missing, it is clear who took them. Resolve 1 effect of your choice. Discard an item possession, then flip. Discard all of your possessions and impair influence and will, then discard. Do we have an item to discard? We do. I'll discard the occult tablet. I don't like it, but yeah. I think we have to. And the debt will flip in a second once I get this back in. There we go. Okay, the debt will flip into Hitmen. You see now that it was no ordinary bank you borrowed from. Some armed men confront you and demand that you repay what you owe. Strength. Oh, delightful. Jacqueline's strength is exactly 1. Wunderbar. We've got 2 clues at this, but oh, Jacqueline should also have gained a clue from Doom advancing. There's our clue, so we do have a reroll available to us. A 6, so we don't flip. right? Yes, we don't flip. All right, then Mandy's got a whole bunch of stuff here that she's got to test for. Jeez Louise. So we've got a whole mess of stuff here. All right, here's how we're going to do this for color purposes. We're going to color code these tests. Hallucinations is going to be black. Hunger is going to be green. Terror is going to be blue. Leg injury is going to be red. So I need 3 black, 3 green. No, 2 of each. 2 green, 2 black, 2 blue, and 1 red. Okay, so, All right, so hallucinations isn't flipping, neither is hunger. As of right now, terror and leg injury are. I'm going to spend the focus to try to prevent the leg injury from flipping, which I cannot do. So the terror and the leg injury flip. All right, so we'll get those 2 out of shot. Oh, we also have paranoia here as well. So I'll roll for paranoia real quick with the green dice. Paranoia doesn't flip. All right, so terror up first. This will flip into. Each night the sun sets and you're surrounded by suffocating darkness. Lose 1 sanity, then flip. So Mandy's down to 4 sanity. As for her leg injury, I believe this flips into, yep, lose 2 health unless you become delayed, and she will. And then that flips back. Then Mandy gets another corruption, or another token on her corruption, which I believe, 3 would now resolve the reckoning effect of each of my madness, treating all die rolls as 1s. I think we're going to have to take a Dark Pact for that one. That'll get rid of her Eldritch tokens, but also give us the ever-dangerous Hammer of Damocles hanging over our heads. On a reckoning, we roll a die. On a 1, it's time to fulfill our part of the bargain, flip. Okay. And then we need a new gate. So our new gate is Atlantis Space 8. And then we need a monster to go with it. Oh, delightful. The Wraith is back again. And Mark now has a cursed condition. Delightful. Which Jacqueline could take a look at something. We've not been paying attention to that. We're going to take a look at Mandy's Dark Pact that she got. Mark is now cursed. He's rolling red dice. I'll get the Dark Pact here so I can look at that for Mandy. Pact with Yog-Sothoth. The blasphemous power takes hold of you, forcing you to carry out the desires of the lurker at the threshold. Spawn a gate for each spell you have, then advance the omen by 1, then discard. Mandy right now has 1 spell, so if we can get rid of that, I think we'll be sitting pretty. Probably let that go off. She should be at 5 sanity, I think. All right, that was the gate. So now we go to you know what? That any of the others would be willing to take this burden from you if they could. But there is simply no other option. There is no one who both knows these dark secrets and possesses the rare expertise to put that knowledge to use. Best man for the job, event. Any investigator with a talent condition may gain a cursed condition. If no investigator gains the condition, each investigator loses 2 and 2. Do we have anybody with a talent? I think we had to get rid of them earlier. And 2 and 2 would just wipe 2 of our investigators out. So, this is terrible. But I think I have to spend the 3 clues from Jacqueline, as much as I don't want to cancel this event, because otherwise we lose 2 investigators and our only chance at completing this game. But that's the end of the Mythos phase, so the spawn of Hastur has been defeated, which means we get our second mystery out. If it's not, I'm going to use this as like my final check-in point. If I think we can win after this, then I'm going to keep going with the game. If not, we're just going to tap out here and take the L, heading into Arkham Horror 2nd Edition next week. So, let's see what our second mystery is. This will be our final mystery as well for the game. Because the other problem right now is our gates are very inaccessible to us. So this needs to be a fairly quick mystery that we can deal with. So our mystery, well, quick-ish. Come on. Which actually that'll relate to Mandy in a second, but let's see what we've got here. Come on. There we are. Beneath an alien sky, a sudden celestial phenomenon appears to be projecting the image of twin suns into the sky, and at night, the stars become unfamiliar and dark, almost as if the Earth has been transposed into another location. When an investigator closes a gate during an otherworld encounter, he may spend 2 clues to place 1 Eldritch token on this card. If that gate corresponds to the current omen, place an additional Eldritch token on this card. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are Eldritch tokens on this card equal to the number of investigators, solve this mystery. Okay, now we get Mandy's personal story clear. The answer is clear. When you gain this card, spawn 3 clues. Treat number of investigators as 1 lower when determining its value on mystery, adventure, and mythos cards. Okay, so let me spawn the 3 clues. That's actually interesting. Because now that means Beneath an Alien Sky would only take 3 Eldritch tokens. The question is, can we get set up for that? We need to spend how many clues for that? 2. One, two, 3. Spaces 5, 17, and 21. So 5, 17, which is right here, and 21, which is down here in the middle of nowhere by Tony. That is the question now, isn't it? Let's see, do we have... Well, I know Tony's got the tablet shards and a clue, so if we can get that, we might have a chance at this. We absolutely would need the tablet shards, though. And we're going to have, at most... We're going to have, well... I'm thinking this through because we need to get 2 clues. Basically we have 2 rounds to get set up. So we need to get 2 clues. We need to get 3 more clues. Get them on 2 different people and probably get them looking at 2 blue gates. Mark's way out there in the middle of nowhere. He goes to London. Jim had a ship ticket. Let's see. Could he go? He could go to Buenos Aires, but that still leaves the problem of we need more clues. You're definitely in a world of trouble. Wait, was that a... We flipped Jacqueline's debt. She discards that. Okay. So now I'm thinking about this. We're in deep trouble if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm deciding if I want to try to salvage this mystery or just tap out here. So... Right. Did anybody else fail their personal stories? No. So Jacqueline goes and confronts and encounters Tony to get the occult shards and a clue, which would put her at 2 if she takes the clue from Mandy before going down to Sydney. She'd still be 1 short. And Jim's clue, Jim doesn't have a clue to help with that. Omen would advance to Green Comet. Nope, I think what's going to happen here is we're going to advance the Omen to Green Comet next turn. We're still going to be short clues for this. Then Hastur's going to wake up. So I think we're actually going to see the writing on the wall here. Tap out, and we're going to take the loss in Eldritch Horror, so we'll go into 2nd edition next week, down a health and a sanity. So I'll make a note of that. So Hastur manages to draw first blood, and we'll meet our replacement investigator for Jim Culver tomorrow. And we'll actually meet him next week when we reconvene Christmas in Arkham to play Arkham Horror 2nd edition. But in that ramble, that will do it for this video. Tomorrow we're going to start a series of videos around the new Mr. President from GMT Games. I'm expecting that to be at least 2 videos. As for Mystical Munchies, Saturday we'll continue out of the Final Fantasy XIV Ultimate Cookbook with the side Honey Muffin. And I do welcome your feedback on the Dice Towers in the comments down below, which one you like. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.